Alright, so the next step is let's go ahead and find our rectangle code, which is here, that we just wrote. And what we're going to do is we're going to integrate that back in with what we had going on before, which was our ShapeMaker FS that we were building up. I still have it called test FS from all the way back when this was just our first ISF test. So I think it might also be a good time to maybe rename this. I want to make sure I'm also going to put it under a little bit of light version control. It still is at version 1 from all the way back when we looked at that. So now might be a good time to start, versioning or at least kind of paying attention to this stuff. I'm just gonna kind of copy and paste and maybe save an old one as I go. But if you want to use whatever version control methodology you like, this is one way to kind of keep track of it. At any rate, test.fs is a really bad name for this. So I'm at least going to call this ShapeMaker. And then I'm going to try and let's go ahead and version it to 2, and let's put our version here to 2. Just for now, there's lots of ways to version things, but this at least lets us kind of keep track of what FS we're working on. So if I want to come back, I can kind of do it. So let's see, we've got ShapeMaker 02, and this is the same as test. So let's take that old test and I'm just going to delete it. And there we go, it's updated here in our list of ISF files. And so what we're going to do is come into rect, and let's just copy and paste that code that we created to create a rectangle. And then what I want to do is actually make a drop-down UI element so that I can just switch between circles and squares. That seems like that'll be really useful and a lot of fun in VDMX. So I've come in here in rect, and of course I don't need any of this stuff here, that function here. I'm just going to go and copy that rectangle function, Command C, and I'm going to come in here to ShapeMaker 02002, and I'm going to just put this right underneath ellipse, right like that. So I've got the rectangle function and I've got the ellipse right next to each other, and this is nice and easy to kind of see and read. And you notice I've taken some care too to give them similar named variables in similar orders, even though the rectangle takes in more arguments than ellipse does. The only kind of like thing I see that's different is the ellipse has the fill color, has the size as last, and this one has the fill color as last. So I'm going to actually just rearrange those real quick so that they're the same. It'll just make it easier later on. And that's not going to make any difference here for the function, but then of course when I pack these things in here, I want to rearrange these to size and fill. There we go. So no changes there, just a quick standardization. And then I'm going to put a comment up here, and I'm just going to call this shape functions. Just a note for myself later. And then what I'm going to do is, let's say color plus equal ellipse, and then what I want to have happen is if something happens in the UI, then color will be equal to rectangle instead of ellipse, depending on an option that the user chooses. And the options, let's go ahead and just copy all this so it's all the same. So the rectangle will take these same variables we made up here in our iterator variables, position, fill, and size. Those are all going to kind of fall in and be the exact same thing. And now let's go ahead and let's think about what might be different. So if I come up here to the rectangle, first of all, size is not just a float value. It's going to be a single value for making circles, but it's going to be 2 values. So I can make some decisions now, like if I want to have the exact same code, I could just say vec2 size if I want, and that will at least just return this same basically it's going to just split it into the x and y so they're the same, so make squares instead of rectangles, and we can adjust this later if we want. And then this is also going to need a rounding value, and for now let's just make that be 0, so no rounding. And then maybe we'll just attach this up to a slider in a little bit. So there we go, we've got color plus equal ellipse, and then we've got color plus equal rectangle. So I just need to build a conditional here that says, like, hey, if the UI menu is doing one thing, draw this shape, otherwise draw the rectangle shape. Great, so I'm just going to comment that out for now. I'm just going to have that sit there. Actually, before I do that, let's test it. So I'm going to comment out this line. And I'm going to do a multi-line comment. and let's just make sure that that's working. And I'm glad I tested here. Let's see, fill, syntax error, vec3, something going on here with the syntax coming in. And I forgot a comma. There we go. And look at that. Hey, it works right away. That's great. So instead of those being circles, those are now rectangles with all that same stuff. Okay, so the name circle size is now a pretty dumb name for a variable. So let's change it to just size and save it. And then I've updated that circle size, so I need to make sure that circle size down here in my code is just size. Just to keep for my sanity here. Great, and cool. Okay, so that's all working. Okay, so now I just want to switch between them, and what I'm going to need is a new UI element. What I need is a drop down, or a long, as VDMX calls this. So actually I don't have the syntax for this memorized, but fortunately, if I come here and I say just new ISF file, remember it like gives me like an example, it gives me like some boilerplate, and I can just come in here and I can see some of the different UI items. They make one of each, and I find this really useful reference. So rather than having to memorize all this, I just go new and then just copy the JSON that I need. And so let's see, this thing, long input is a pop-up button. That's what I want. So I want a long input as a pop-up button. And I'm going to start at the beginning of that comma and grab all of that to the end of that comma. I'm going to press Command C. I'm going to come back into my ShapeMaker, and I'm going to just paste that in right underneath. Let's see, let's do it at the very top. That sounds like a good place to have our shape selection. So at the very top, I'll press Command V, and I'll save. And now, look at that, I've got that UI element there. So let's read this. Okay, so this name, we've got a name, and instead of this being long input is a pop-up button. This should probably be shape type, maybe, I don't know, shape type. This is up to you. Now the type is going to be a long, and it's going to have some values. So the values are 0, 1, and 2. And then these labels are just used for the interface. So what it's going to return is actually these values. So you just test against 0, 1, or 2. And actually we don't want 0, 1, or 2. We just want 0 and 1 for now. And instead of red, green, and blue, we want this to say circle and square. And then we choose a default, and let's have it default to the circle. Okay, so let's go ahead and test that. We have shape type, circle, square. Very good. So now all we have to do is test for shape type and see if it's returning 0 or 1 in our code down here in our condition. So if shape type is equal to 0, do this. Else if shape type is equal to 1, do that. Okay, and let's go Command Save. Moment of truth. Let's go and come over here to our UI elements. Come to grab this guy and circle, square, circle, square. Cool. So this is going to be so nice for us in VDMX. We can now start to get totally different looks just based on some of these shape options.